Judd Zolgad, Derek Wetmore, thanks for coming to 1500ESPN.com. You can, of course, hear me now with Phil Mackey. Mackey and Judd, 9 to 1 weekdays right here on 1500 ESPN. Derek, got a question for you. Off of something that Phil and I talked about today, the Viking situation. We could talk about the quarterback all we want, and eventually they need to find a long-term solution. But you've been studying this as well. With how many needs this team has, especially on defense, would you be upset or would you actually be on board with this thought process? Matt Castle has until Friday to exercise his option to return. If he does so, then the Vikings have a point where they can exercise their option to bring him back. What would your feeling be with all the needs this team has? If Matt Castle goes into training camp as their starting quarterback and they use this year's draft not to address quarterback, but to address defense?
Well, I'll answer the first part first. I think that he'll go in as the starter even if they draft somebody. I don't see them moving up in the draft to take one of the guys who could potentially be the starter for next season. And frankly, I think that's fine. He's kind of a bridge to whoever your next quarterback is going to be. And that's not the end of the world. He's a serviceable, competent backup. So long as Christian Ponder isn't given a chance to win the starting job, I think there's no complaints with having Matt Castle. As for addressing other needs in the draft, I'm of the belief right now that if they stay at the number 8 pick, they should address defense. Defensive was far more concerning last season. Almost historically bad were the Vikings on defense. And really, there's going to be some good players available at number 8 on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
That's a statement I don't think you can make about quarterback.
And if you look at this defense, and we don't know yet, do they go 4-3? Do they switch to a 3-4?
Right, we don't know.
But it doesn't matter because any way you look at it, you got Xavier Rhodes at one corner. You don't necessarily have the other corner filled. You don't have necessarily the nickel corner filled. Safety, you have Harrison Smith, who we like, but they don't have somebody at the other safety really. A 3-4 or 4-3, you still have needs on the defensive line. I still contend, Derek, and this probably won't be talked about enough, but I still think one of the most important positions to fill on the defensive line is nose tackle. You need a big nose tackle. Sharif Floyd can come back and play the 3 technique, that's fine. But if you do not have a guy that can stop the run, it's, Fred Evans, right? LaTroy Guion. Those are just all guys. Pat Williams was a special nose tackle. I know he was a huge man and a fat guy, but you know what? He had athletic ability. Nose tackle, to me, is a completely underrated position, and when you have a big run-stopping nose tackle, 3-4 or 4-3, it makes your defense completely different.
Well, on Fred Evans, I personally didn't see anything out of him last year that I thought, oh, hey, this is a great player. He's definitely a serviceable piece. Pro Football Focus, who watches that stuff much more closely than I do, though, likes him. They liked his performance, graded him out positively last year. So maybe he can plug a spot. I'll say this. It's difficult to judge interior linemen on offense or defense.
Oh, I agree. It's
for the layman like you.
It's very difficult.
I watch these games intently. Sometimes we'll go back and look at things too. But it's so tough to discern who's very good, who's kind of good, who's mediocre.
You're right.
There's just not that much of a distinction. But maybe Sharif Floyd and Fred Evans can be the interior of your defensive line. I circled 3 positions on defense that I think are more important even than the defensive line.
Okay.
And that's the 2 cornerback, because I do like Xavier Rhodes. You need a cornerback, you need a middle linebacker, and you need a strong safety. Now, I know they like Andrew Sendejo, but I'm not sure that he's anything more than just a guy. You use the phrase just a guy.
Yeah.
I love that phrase. He's just a guy. He's filling a hole. Harrison Smith, great safety. But I think if you can afford to, under the cap, upgrade the other safety position, go ahead and do it.
And if you bring in a really good quarterback, a top-notch guy, and you don't improve this defense, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, you're still going to finish last in the division.
You're not going to win games. Right. And here's the other thing about the Vikings offense. If Matt Castle gives you a competent starter, not a great starter, but you know what? In this league, Matt Castle can start. He's not gonna wow you. Probably not going to go to a Pro Bowl ever again.
He might be one of the 30 best quarterbacks in the world.
Exactly. So here's what you got. You've got Peterson at running back, which is just fine. You've got Felton potentially at fullback. You need to find a backup running back, but you can find those anywhere. Your wide receiver core is not terrible now by any means. It's pretty good. Your offensive line, you have to think, it improved, I think, throughout the course of the season. It started off rough. Khalil has to take another step forward, but if he doesn't, you're in big trouble. He's your left tackle. Khalil's got to be a guy who can play for you for 10 to 12 years, gets one more big contract, and is much improved in his 3rd year. Their tight ends are fine. And the other key thing is Norv Turner I hope to God, is going to be a better defensive coordinator than Bill Musgrave. So your offense is really not that bad. Now, do you want to find your long-term quarterback? Absolutely. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to force it. And Rick Spielman can't afford to. If Rick Spielman goofs up the quarterback going into next year, the next guy to get fired won't be Mike Zimmer. It won't be anybody other than Rick Spielman.
Do you think you'll still be around when Spielman's on the chopping block?
I'm through 3 partners already. I'm clear as a bell, buddy boy.
One note for Vikings fans who are looking to free agency.
I'm just kidding, of course. I love Mackey.
Which opens March 11th in the NFL. I'm not sure. March 11th is the free agency date. If you want to just let me get the information out and then
2
make
p.m.
the jokes. And any fans who are looking at that, the Vikings are about $21.6 million under the cap, according to a website that tracks that stuff very closely. So they'll have a little bit of money to spend if they want to upgrade. The other options to upgrade are trade and through the draft.
Plug the podcast.
That's right. We're doing a podcast tonight. We've done 2 episodes already. Some surprisingly good feedback.
It's got a name.
We are calling it Sports Over Beers. It tells you exactly everything you need to know. That's how I got Judd on board with it. That's how I got Phil Mackey on board with it. We just go to a bar, talk about sports, record a podcast, and we'll post it to the Sports Wire on Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning. So look for that if you like talking about sports or Judd's personal life.
And iTunes next week, you said?
That's right.
We're sure people want to find it on iTunes.
We're getting graphics and stuff for it this week. The next step then is to get it on iTunes, and hopefully you guys can download it on your smartphones, your Android, your Apple, whatever you use. We're going to try and get it up on everything so that you can just listen to it easily.
So we're done?
I think that does it for us. What more could we possibly give them?
Derek, Judd, 1500ESPN.com. Goodbye.